The dawn comes slow across the open plains. A thin ribbon of smoke curls from a dying fire, twisting into the morning air. Somewhere, the quiet breaks with a sound that's been heard on this land for centuries, the faint hiss of fat hitting iron. It's the sound of bacon meeting the skillet. A small sound maybe, but one that once fueled the greatest migration in American history. That sound was survival. That smell was hope. And that taste, salty, smoky, simple, became the flavor of a nation learning to live wild. Hey, you're watching Echoing Westwinds, where the dust of the frontier still carries stories of grit, hunger, and the people who turned wilderness into home. If you love the sound of the past echoing through firelight and folklore, make sure to subscribe. And there's always another story riding just beyond the horizon. Now saddle up, because today we're tracing the trail of a food so ordinary it became extraordinary. This is the story of how bacon, yes bacon, helped build the American frontier. Long before the cowboy rode west, long before railroads and revolvers, the story of bacon had already begun on another continent. Its roots reach deep into medieval Europe, where the word itself, bacon in Old French, meant the back of a pig. But to the people who spoke it, it meant something more. It meant meat that would last through winter. It meant salt and smoke and patience. It meant life preserved by fire. In a time before refrigeration, curing pork was not art or indulgence. It was survival science. Salt drew out moisture. Smoke kept rot away. And for centuries, that practice became a rhythm. Slaughter in the fall, salt through the winter, smoke in the hearth. Every farmhouse across England had its hanging slabs, and every spring they cut them down, ready to feed another year. By the 1700s, the craft had become an industry. In the quiet town of Wiltshire, England, a man named John Harris built a new kind of smokehouse. He soaked his pork in a secret mix of sweet brine, a process soon known as the Wiltshire cure. The result was tender, mild, and long-lasting, perfect for trade, travel, and taste. When settlers boarded ships bound for the New World, they packed barrels of that same cured pork. It crossed the Atlantic, and when it landed on American soil, it met a wilderness that demanded endurance. The settlers who survived the first brutal winters learned a simple truth. If you had bacon, you could keep moving. If you didn't, you stayed hungry. 2 centuries later, that lesson hadn't changed. When families gathered their wagons for the Oregon Trail, the packing lists were brutally practical. Flour, coffee, beans, dried fruit, and 50 pounds of bacon for every adult. It was more than food. It was insurance. Each slab was packed in bran to keep the fat from melting under the prairie sun. Each strip represented one more morning alive. It cost 5 cents a pound in Missouri. By the time they reached Oregon, that same bacon sold for 25 cents. 5 times the price, because it was worth 5 times its weight in comfort. At dawn, wagon camps smelled the same from Nebraska to Nevada. Wood smoke, dust, and bacon. Women fried it on cast iron skillets blackened from weeks of travel. Men packed the grease into tins for later, and children ate it with hands still shaking from cold. One immigrant, Helen Carpenter, wrote in her journal, "Our only variety came from changing the order of bread and bacon to bacon and bread." It wasn't a complaint. It was gratitude dressed as humor. Because in a land where everything could kill you, a slice of bacon meant you were still fighting back. But not all stories were sweet. Along the route to the Rockies stood Fort Laramie, where travelers dumped the weight they could no longer bear. Pianos, furniture, barrels, tools, and mountains of meat. In one gold rush summer, over 20,000 pounds of bacon were abandoned there, spoiling under the sun. Locals called it Camp Sacrifice. The smell hung in the air for miles, the scent of waste and desperation. Bacon could save you, yes, but it could also break your wagon, rot in your barrels, or draw wolves to your camp. It was both blessing and burden, the perfect metaphor for the West itself. As America industrialized, bacon found new ways to travel. Cincinnati became the first porkopolis, a city where rivers ran red with the work of slaughterhouses. Then came Chicago, rising from the plains with iron tracks and smoke-stacked skies. From there, companies like Armour and Company and Swift and Company shipped bacon in early refrigerated rail cars, stretching its reach from coast to coast. During the Civil War, those same companies fed soldiers, Union and Confederate alike, with rations of hardtack, beans, and salt pork. Men marched into battle with a strip of bacon in their pack. It reminded them of home, even when home was burning. By the time peace returned, bacon had become the nation's comfort food. The taste of survival, now available to anyone with a dime. Out on the open range, things were simpler and harder. The chuck wagon cook rose before the rest, his hands cracked, his hat low over his eyes. He lit the fire, poured the coffee, and reached for his slab of sowbelly, cowboy slang for bacon. It hit the pan with a sizzle that cut through the dawn stillness. The smell drew the men like moths. They ate in silence, hunched over tin plates, staring into the rising sun. Beans, biscuits, and bacon, the holy trinity of the trail. There was no glamour, only fuel. Every mouthful was a promise of strength for another 12-hour ride. Every drop of grease wiped on denim was proof they were alive another day. Bacon, like the cowboy himself, was tough, resilient, and just salty enough to survive anything. When they rode into towns like Deadwood or Dodge City, the smell followed them indoors. Saloons knew exactly how to keep the whiskey flowing, the free lunch. A nickel bought you a beer, and the plate beside it was piled with bacon. The more you ate, the thirstier you got. The thirstier you got, the longer you stayed. For drifters, miners, and outlaws, it was the best deal on earth. 5 cents for a mug and a memory of better meals. Behind the piano and the laughter, bacon hissed on iron skillets from sunrise to midnight. It was a scent of civilization in places barely civil at all, yet every comfort came at a cost. By the mid-1870s, the American buffalo was nearly extinct. Where once the Great Plains thundered with herds, now only bones and silence remained. Native American tribes, cut off from their food and culture, were driven onto reservations. Their government rations included coffee, flour, sugar, and bacon. What had been the symbol of freedom for settlers became a symbol of confinement for others. The same smoke that kept pioneers alive filled the air above tribes forced to depend on it. That dual truth runs through every vein of history. One man's meal is another man's loss. And bacon, innocent as it seemed, became the flavor of both. Still, it endured, because it had to. In a land where winters killed cattle and summers baked the rivers dry, cured meat meant security. Every ranch kept a smokehouse, every prospector packed a strip in his satchel. When storms cut off trails or rivers froze, it was bacon that stayed good. It was bacon that saw men through. And because of that, it became more than just a taste. It became ritual. The ritual of mourning, the ritual of survival. To fry bacon at dawn was to declare, "I'm still here." The recipes were simple, passed down from campfire to kitchen. Take cornmeal, a little salt and molasses. Add hot water until it turns to dough. Pat it into cakes. Fry it in bacon grease until the edge is crisp and the center softens. That was the cowboy's Johnny cake. Sweet, smoky, and heavy enough to last till sundown. No baking powder, no fluff, just the essentials. Each bite tasted like hard work and smoke, like the West itself. Some men drizzled them with honey if they could find it. Others just ate them plain, washing them down with black coffee that could peel paint. But always the bacon came first. Because no matter how tough life got, breakfast still mattered. A hot pan, a little grease, and a sunrise. Sometimes that was all a man needed to keep going. When the frontier finally closed and railroads replaced wagon ruts, bacon came home. It left the campfire for the kitchen, traded iron skillets for stoves, and began showing up in breakfast plates from Boston to San Francisco. But it never lost its soul. Every morning when the first slice hits the pan and the smoke curls toward the ceiling, something ancient wakes up in the sound. That's history talking, softly, like a ghost that still remembers the trail. The same sound that once rose from wagon camps and mining shacks still echoes in every kitchen where bacon cooks today. Because in that sizzle lives a story. The story of endurance, of hunger, of the endless westward pull that built America. It's easy to romanticize the Old West with gunfights and gold rushes, but the real story lived in smaller moments. The scrape of a knife through pork fat, the spark of flint in the dark, the taste of salt after a week of dust. That's where the frontier lived, not just in legends, but in every meal that kept those legends alive long enough to be told. Bacon didn't win battles or settle towns, but it fed the people who did. It was the common thread through uncommon lives, from mothers in canvas-topped wagons to drovers on midnight watch, from miners knee-deep in mud to soldiers on frozen marches. Every one of them shared that same simple comfort. A skillet, a fire, a smell that said, "We made it through the night." So next time you drop bacon into a pan, listen. You're hearing the same sound your ancestors heard when the West was still wild. You're smelling the same smoke that hung above rivers and prairies when hope was something you could taste. Because history doesn't always ride on horses or hide in books. Sometimes it cooks quietly in a pan, whispering the same story over and over, that we survived and we kept going. The frontier may be gone, but its heartbeat still crackles on stovetops across America. It's in every home where the morning starts with fire and salt. It's in every life that keeps moving forward through hardship. Bacon, simple, humble, enduring, remains what it always was. Not just food, but faith. The faith that tomorrow can start warm, even when the world around you is cold. You've been listening to Echoing Westwinds, where we keep the spirit of the frontier alive, one story at a time. If this tale stirred something in you, subscribe and ride with us again. Because out here, the past never dies. It just sizzles quietly in the morning light.